Hi, I'm here with Manfred Vijars to talk about some of Manfred's experiences with religion and faith, and the feelings associated with those experiences. Manfred is a Queensland bush poet, songwriter, guitarist, entertainer, with his very own style. He used to be president of the Australian Bush Poets Association, is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent. And he takes pretty good pictures with a camera. He also has a weekly radio show out of Mackay, Queensland, I believe.
Rockhampton.
Rockhampton, excuse me.
Close.
Sorry.
Beef capital of the world. Best lot of bull anywhere, particularly off my station.
There you go. His parents were Russian-born Latvian and Polish-born German.
Mm-hmm.
He describes himself as 100% mongrel bred and Australian by choice.
Correct.
He can be pretty funny one moment and deeply sensitive the next. Manfred, in my opinion, is both a gentleman and a larrikin.
Thank you.
I met Manfred when we were both much younger. At a time when we both lived in Sydney, I think, and we were both active members of the LDS Church. Manfred is a bit older than me. I looked up to him then, and I still do now.
Thank you.
So thank you. The idea is to talk first, get some historical context perhaps. So if you could tell me a little bit about your childhood, your youth, and your adulthood. This is kind of sort of biographical type information, 5 minutes.
Sure. I was born when I was very young. I was born in Germany actually. We came out here when I was 2. I think we went to a place called Bonegilla first. We were immigrants, refos. I've still got my refo card. I'm a legitimate refugee. We moved to Werribee, which is halfway between Melbourne and Geelong in Victoria. Grew up there. Schooling was a bit rough. Couldn't speak too much English at the time, so I copped a bit of crap pushed around called Little Nazi Bastard. Didn't know what they were talking about, but all I know was they were picking on me. So I used to wag school quite a lot. That was in primary school, and it sort of carried on into high school as well. And the weird thing was, of course, I'd be wagging for a good time, head down the river, anywhere in the bush, get right away from stuff. And back in those days, you only had one exam at the end of the year. And a few weeks before the exam, I'd rock up a bit more religiously and do a bit of study. And I'd always get into the bloody A and B stream. Don't know why, but that's the way it went. I left home when I was about 14, did what I call the big circle trip. Made my way hitchhiked from Melbourne to Mildura, pretty much everything I stood up in. Made my way to Sydney, and from there out all over the shop. A couple of years later, I think at 16, 17, I ended up in the Territory and shooting crocodiles for a living. 26 bob an inch. And we had to fight with the traders as well too, because they'd always find flaws with the skins and stuff and try to cheat us. But there for one season, worked as a cane cutter before they brought the harvesters in out at Ingham. And over in Western Australia on the building of the Yankee tracking station at Carnarvon there during its construction. There for a bit, then down on the Nullarbor, there's cooking. Started working as a cook. Spent some time in the services, and after that joined the church, involved with the youth program, absolutely loved it.
So what age were you when you joined the church?
I was about 24, I think, something like that.
All right, okay.
Something like that. I had been home after that, in between as well. And married, met a young lady there, married. Subsequently had 7 children. She brought one into the marriage. He was always my number one anyway, so it's no distinction for me. And divorced and remarried. Oh, hang on. Before the divorce, went to uni as an adult, as a mature age student, into IT, which was software engineering and database management. Worked as a contractor on my own for a little bit, and in between. Retired. Found I had a shop for writing. I had that for quite a long time, and I was able to sort of apply it a bit more. And got involved with another group of poets, fellow poets, and sort of been onward and upward since then. And now, in retirement, I find I'm busier than I've ever been. I do a bit of entertaining. I go out to festivals and get commissions here and there, and yeah.
Terrific, thank you. So, how would you characterise your childhood and youth? Was it fun, boring, sad, happy?
It's quite a dichotomy. It was full of adventure because I made the adventure. The boring bits was going to school. The school bit wasn't all that bad because I did make some friends and it sort of ripped on through. But I was always in a lot of trouble. I was a proper bastard as a kid. I mean, trouble, real trouble. Police trouble as well too. So a lot of trouble with the law. And it was good to sort of get away, and yeah. So the childhood was bad in one sense, but really great in another. I spent a lot of time in the bush. Well, we had the river, which wasn't too far, and I'd muck around there solo on my own. I was a little hermit, little Robinson Crusoe, and very much on my own. One time I was scavenging down the tip. And I came across this old tarpaulin, an old truckies tarpaulin. I was able to salvage a fair bit of it, and I was about 12 or 13 at the time, and I brought it home. I was able to turn it into a bedroll / swag, into which I'd roll a blanket, some fishing gear, my rifle. I had a 22 Sportco single shot, and an old book of Banjo Patterson. I remember that well, and my dog. Spot. He's an old bloke, yeah, an old fox terrier. And weekends go down the river, and I always come back with a skin full of rabbits and maybe a few fish, redfin mostly. So it was good. Yeah. So I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's an exciting life you've had. At least.
I think so. Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Vastly different to my experiences, but.
We're all special and unique, just like everybody else in the world.
We all have a story to tell. You've probably got a few more stories than most of it.
Excuse me.
Let's now talk, if we might, because the purpose that I'm hoping to accomplish out of this is you've had some parts of your life where you've had nothing to do with religion, I'm gathering. And you've had some parts...
I did grow up a Catholic. I was baptised as a Catholic, went to Catholic school as well.
Oh, okay. And at one point you joined the LDS Church, or the Mormon Church, and I guess at least while I knew you back then, you were active and participating. I'm not sure how long that continued, but
24 years.
Wow, that's quite a bit. So what I'm hoping to focus on a fair bit is how it felt at the various parts of your life, and at the points where you transitioned as well. I'm particularly interested in transitions. So any major transitions that you've had in your life, and what it felt like. Part of the purpose of this is to help other people as they listen to your experiences to see how that felt, and maybe identify with some of those things, and maybe not, and also to help people who on the other side of those experiences, who maybe have somebody in their life who is undergoing a transition of some kind, because that's generally where we have the most angst in our lives often, I think, is when stuff is changing. I'm hoping now that we can look at what it was like before the church or before other major transitions, what it felt like as you were going through those transitions from one state to another. I think you've given us a bit of an idea of what your life was like before church, but is there anything you'd like to add about that?
Well, what happened was that out of the army, it was pretty much at 6s and 7s. It was sort of weird. And I just happened to be living in Harbord at the time, and just up the road was a chapel. And just out of curiosity, I came in to check it out. A little bit back before that, I saw the Hare Krishna movement was pretty big at the time, and all these other sort of sects were around as well, and it was a bit weird, and, you know. But I went in, and for some reason, it felt like I'd come home. So I pursued it, and wasn't long before I was baptised, and I joined that church. So, yeah.
Okay. And you said it felt like home. What does that mean?
Very comfortable, very warm, very friendly. I guess it was a bit of a contrast to where I was before, because I think I started to hit the drink a little bit, which was a bit of a worry. And yeah, but I shook that off pretty quick. And a lot of stuff that was said on the initial entry sort of seemed to make a lot of sense, and I was quite comfortable with that. So, yeah, but I took the step and joined there.
My father was Bishop of Harbord Ward at one point.
Yes, he was.
During that time?
No, it was before him, and but I remember your dad. I have a great deal of love for him. A lovely bloke, and your mum too. So, but yeah, no, a lot of respect for your dad, and he was good. I think he married us.
Oh, okay.
I think he did. I could be wrong. Yeah, don't remember.
Cool. All right. So, during that transition to the church, was it? You said that it felt like home. That was that the driving force that made you want to be a member, or was it something else?
That was the overwhelming feeling. It felt like home, and there was a lot of stuff that seemed to make sense.
Doctrines
and stuff like that, you know, and
family-related things.
Absolutely, all of the above, and of course I wanted to explore more, and it felt comfortable, so I joined.
Cool.
And it wasn't purely the comfort driven. There was a lot of stuff that just seemed to make sense at the time.
So, your life after you joined the church, was it noticeably different to before?
It was still an adventure. I wasn't long before I was involved with the youth program. Loved it, absolutely loved it, and so there was that link with the outdoors and with kids as well. And I guess being part of their growing up, I do recall quite distinctly, well before I was involved with the youth in the church and the church itself, I made a determination that I would be a bloody good father. That was my determination, to be the best father that could be. Yeah, that was the best. And in a sense, this was sort of training for that. The boys were great. I'd take them out, and a lot of the stuff I don't believe you can do that anymore. I mean, I'd take them on overnight hikes into Ku-ring-gai Chase in the dark, you know, and you know what the landscape is like there.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for harm.
Absolutely. And the thing is that it was good. I mean, it was, yeah. And I'm still in touch with a couple of them. So say they've forgiven me. No, the youth program within the church was very big for me and my involvement, and I was very dedicated. I don't think anybody could say that I wasn't.
Excellent. And you hadn't met or married, well, you married at some point, not too long after that.
Not too long after, yeah.
And
27? I don't remember. Too long, too many years.
Indeed. So once you're in the church, many things didn't change for you too much, like the adventurous life. Presumably, the church offered you, well, what's right? There's a lot of things in the church. For example, the word of wisdom and the like, that some people consider restrictive, and others don't. So, some people find it's a challenge.
Those sort of things weren't a problem for me.
No.
It's as I said, it sat comfortably. I didn't have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. And knowing my background back then, that there was a lot of alcohol involved in my home. Growing up, I didn't have a problem with it. And just a little bit on that as well. I didn't have a problem with it, and when my dad was in a nursing home, he wanted his bottle of scotch. I had no problem buying his bottle of scotch, buying a good bottle of scotch for him every week, whatever he wanted. He smokes, anything, it's him, But what applied to me, What was for others, that's their business. But, besides, probably a bit of an aside on that, was, as far as I was concerned, Dad had paid his dues, he could have whatever he wanted. That's it.
Hmm. No, it wasn't your place to
No, hell no.
put him in his place.
No. He put me in this place.
What about family and friends? When you joined the church and made that transition, which was it challenging for your family and friends? Did you have any?
No, I've been very much alone. That was in Sydney, Mum and Dad were in Melbourne, and it was no issue. No, I'd never had anybody breathing down my neck saying, "Thou shalt or thou shalt not." So,
So largely, you gained stuff.
Yeah, I think
when
so.
When you joined.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Moving on then. Anything else that your time in the church? At some point you met your lovely wife and married. How was that?
It was lovely. It was good. She was just newly converted.
Okay.
And she was very appealing. And well, we
hence you married.
Married her. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we subsequently had 7 children together. So. And as I said, she brought one in herself. And but as far as I was concerned, he was my number one. Always number one. Yeah. He was the first.
He was the first, and the rest just came on. Yeah, that's cool. At some point, you stopped.
Yep. It was a we moved up here to Brisbane, and it's almost like the culture in the church was completely different, somewhat different. Not a problem. Wanting to get back in with the youth, work with the youth up here. Yeah, things were different, and that's fine. I came up here to start up a business, and I guess I was a little bit different, and I say different, I don't know. The people up here up in Brisbane seem to be somewhat different to the ones in Sydney. I missed those, somewhat different.
Okay, yeah.
Culturally, I think, there's a number of families at the time that were pretty well, not that I had any problem with them, but now that you ask the question, I can review and see. Well, yeah, there was some issues there. When they put me in the church in the youth program, and at the time the scouting program was very, very big. Sadly I saw the scouting program as somewhat restrictive and probably not conducive to good adventures for the youth. But I sort of went along with it anyway, and there was this way, and of course I had kids at that time too, and then there were some interactions that I'd have with the bishopric concerning the children, and I'm thinking this is a bit weird, and somewhere along the point, yeah, and I've got to tell you too that as a family we struggled. We were 7 kids, 8 kids. We struggled pretty hard.
Financially, you mean?
Financially, yes, we did, yeah. And it probably brought us undone. It was at the time when I'd just started uni, when the wife decided, no, that's it, I'm out of here. I want a divorce. Okay.
Big surprise.
Yeah, it was. It came as right out of the blue. It was really, you know, I mean, it's a good profession to be in. It's only going to take a couple of years, and more so than. Don't you love that?
No.
Yeah, that's music. Yeah, and yeah, I think that the spouse at the time was sort of leading up to it anyway. Because looking back, I recall, now you've got to teach me how to change the car, the tyre on the car. Why? We just need to. Okay, fine, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that bit was over. And the funny thing is, you know, the further I was away from that marriage, the better it felt for some reason. I totally lost without the kids. The kids were, you know. But
so
since
she retained custody, and you.
No, custody was never an issue. Custody was never an issue, and I wouldn't fight custody. And we came to an amicable agreement that, you know, as I said at the time, that I was then involved for about 3 years at uni, and I'd have the kids over because I lived on campus at the time, and the kids would come over on weekends. Hang around on campus and all that. That was pretty good because you know, they're in a higher learning environment, and seeing what sort of fun it is certainly made it fun. And I'd still take the kids out. We'd go camping and we'd go out. So yeah.
So you started to, when you moved from Sydney to Brisbane, things were somewhat different.
Yes, they were.
Different culture, different.
That was to be understood, and so what you do is you work with them. And then, of course, when the divorce hit, I knew and I accepted the fact that, being the male, of course I'm the bastard, and it's all my fault. You know, it's because I've seen it. I'd seen it amongst the community as well. You know, like others. You know, it's all, you know, the man's the bastard. Fair enough. They don't know, and people never know, and they want to talk. Well, fine, but that certainly had a bit of an impact. And I went to, when I was at uni, I went to another chapel not far, and there was a pretty good bishop there, and he was pretty good. But once again, it was almost like a shunning, you know. There was you're divorced, or you're going through a divorce, and you're contaminated, and you might spread the virus.
Okay.
So that was accepted. I don't know, well, you know, some people think that way. I mean, I'm not going to do anything to change them. I can't, so don't worry about it. Get on with my own life. I had a degree to get through.
So you felt this. Yes, we've got a battle between the kookaburra and I don't know what the other birds are.
They're miners.
They're miners, and they do not like the kookaburra. sitting over there.
I'd shoot them bastards. I'd shoot them bastards, them bloody miners, I would.
Well, we're having a lot of fun here, but never mind, we'll continue. I think we might leave that in.
Yeah, whatever.
What?
You're the editor.
I'm gathering, as you went through the divorce, I've been through a divorce, and they can be pretty difficult, pretty challenging. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on. But did you feel, I'm gathering you didn't feel supported by those around you, by those at church?
And in a sense it didn't matter anyway, because I was still an active member and still rocked on pretty well. Yeah.
So you just kind of
Worked through it.
And could it have been done better?
Probably, but you know, there's no. We're right out of context now. I mean, I remember, you know, we're talking about feelings and that. So.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It can be a very difficult time.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And people can do things to make life easier or make life harder for you.
And people can be uncaring and unthinking, and I think that's the issue really. It's unthinking, not understanding, and you know. So you don't know what other people are going through, but I thought I was pretty resilient at the time, so I worked through it.
You did okay.
And so I met another, well, this is after the divorce, well and shortly after the divorce and after the degree. I'd got work in IT, and then I met another lady. She was Canadian. And well, long story short, we eventually married. And it was never a condition or a precondition that she should join just because I'm a member. People do things of their own, you know. That's it. Never, ever a condition. And you know, if she didn't want to join, and that's fine. You know, so. But from about then on, I think, you know, I sort of looked closely at a few things as well, and I started to change. Maybe it's a support network or something or not. I don't know. It's hard to say. But things started to show up for me, and it wasn't wrong. No, not for me.
What do you mean when you say
Things show up? I looked at behaviours. I looked at
of other people.
Of other people, yeah. I know you shouldn't be judgmental and all the rest of it, but I mean,
towards you or towards just in
me
general?
And their own interactions in between themselves, and it's all of a sudden things started to seem a bit facile, shallow, and it was just such a strong hit. I thought, well, this is, you know, interesting. And I sort of looked at it, why should that be so shallow? I think then it sort of hit me that the thing about being right, and as opposed to doing right, the being, I guess, I sort of noticed that people are trying, well, and this is probably an unfair generalisation, that people were more concerned about being or looking to do right rather than do right. They're always looking over their shoulder. It was weird, and it really hit me a little while afterwards when I was asked to perform for a multi-denominational event at the chapel. I think there was Muslims and a few other religions there. I was asked to perform, and I saw our leaders. It was almost like I call it a peacock dance. They were sort of showing and strutting themselves and strutting their stuff it's maybe that's very unfair, but that's how it seemed to me, and I thought, how weird. All the others that were there, they seemed to be somewhat relaxed, and but it struck me as being very, very odd, and I was very close. I knew these people. I knew them very well.
Is this a sort of they looked as though they were feeling superior, or
No.
doing a sort of a marketing exercise, or?
No, it's almost as if that I was scared.
Oh, okay.
Which was really weird, you know, that we had people of authority that were very antsy, and they seemed to be very unsure of themselves. Maybe it was the event, given the number of different denominations, but you know, I don't know. It was just something really struck me weird, and I had a bit of a think over that, and I thought, it just seemed so weird. Even those not in leadership positions were pretty much the same as well, I thought. And I saw that in contrast to those that were there, to the Muslims and to the other denominations. The Muslims stuck out because they stuck out there. So yeah, it was just so weird, and it's yeah.
Interesting. Well, these things happen.
Yeah, indeed. And that's not a judgment, it's just an observation,
And
at the time.
That contributed to your questioning?
Well, I'm not sure if it contributed, but by the mere fact that I've remembered it, I'm sure it did, or it does, you know, so all these things sort of add up, or add to more grist for the mill, I guess. So.
Yes, they do indeed. At that point, you were still committed? And
no, I was sort of starting to get away from it, I think, you know, at that stage, you know, I thought, things just started to seem very uncomfortable. And it's a weirdest feeling, not anything that you can specifically put a finger on, but that incident I can. The other incident was the death of my son. He was killed in a car accident just shy of his 18th birthday, and that really knocked us for a six.
Your eldest?
No, that was young Michael. Sean, Amanda, Cinnamon, Summer, Michael, number 5, Summer, Anna, and Manny. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, shy of his 18th birthday.
That's going to be pretty traumatic, I guess.
Yeah, the mother called up and she was just absolutely, understandably hysterical. And there weren't many people around at that time when I needed it. My then wife was there, of course. She was very supportive. And, in fact, ironically, she had a premonition the night before. She said to me, she says, you know, you're probably going to be angry. I don't know why she said that. But please drive carefully. Please drive safely. There's something I feel to me terrible. And she's very perceptive like that, I guess. You know. Happened before. And apparently he was killed that night. Yeah. But it was very traumatic, you may recall. Well, you can understand rather.
Well, yes, I haven't been through that.
And,
I can imagine a bit.
And very few people wanted to have anything to do with me, which was fine anyway. Because then you see who your real friends
During
are.
that time?
During that time,
Related
yeah.
to that? Or?
Related to that, yeah. And there was a couple that I've known from Sydney that were friends, and they're still dear friends. But everybody else was around the mother. Well, she did need the support, so I'm not begrudging that at all. And I remember there was a time, that was a time I really needed a lot of support. I was utterly gutted.
Indeed, yes.
Anyway.
And so your immediate family, your first wife and your children were not far away physically.
No.
But you were kind of left a bit alone, it sounds.
Pretty much. My then wife was very supportive. She was. And I guess that's something, but I was surprised that I didn't see very much of others at all. And kids, of course, were there. I mean, we were all grieving together and working out he was actually, the service was in the chapel, in the LDS chapel, and buried him out at Beanley.
A challenge.
Yeah.
But that was a contributing factor as well?
I don't know. I think I was transitioning out of the church well before then anyway. Just a whole bunch of little things. It's not one great big thing. And look, I don't put any blame on the church at all. I got a lot of pleasure or something. I mean, a lot of growth, I think. I got a lot of personal growth, and I can't deny that. And a lot of good memories, and I like to think that I also contributed to others' growth, particularly within the youth that I worked. I know that there's some of the youth still talk with me, while the youth are big boys now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so it wasn't a big bang moment. So no, this is it. And I started looking around at other stuff, no, that's not fair. Didn't really look around for anything else to replace it. I was quite happy where I was, and just let it go, let it go, let it go.
As you were doing that, as you were transitioning out, did you notice whether the way people treated you was different or the same?
By that stage, I didn't really care. I mean, I guess looking back, it's interesting you meant that question. I remember as a kid at primary school particularly, I wasn't very popular with the kids. I was pushed around on the playground until one day I did banana and I flattened this bloke. And after that it was oh Manfred, we want to play Cowboys. You want to be captain? I still play with the girls. And at high school I was a bit bigger. I could look after myself a bit more too. So, and I just wouldn't attend. So people in a group. Even now, I up and go away for a weekend. And go out on my own, somewhere in the bush. Just me and a swag. Used to be my dog as well.
Solitude.
Another dog. Yeah. The funny thing is, though, that when I'm out in the bush and on my own, the more I realise how inexorably we are all connected. Humans, the earth, everything. It's just an incredible connectivity. I don't know why, it just is. So I'm not
gonna... So, you slowly transitioned out of the church, almost imperceptibly, I suppose.
Pretty well, yeah.
Rather than some people sort of one day said, no, that's it, I'm done. It was, I suppose at one point it might have dawned on you that, oh, I don't do that anymore.
Well, probably, but by then it didn't matter much anyway. I mean, you know who your friends are when you're going through shit. Any sort of shit. And they're the ones that stand by you. And thankfully there are some good friends that I've made and I've tried to stay close to. Some find me a bit of a challenge, and that's okay. And to their credit, they are forgiving, and others are not judgmental at all. Sorry?
Friends are forgiving.
Yeah,
unless you really do something horrible. But yes.
Yeah.
So some people have stuck with you. People in the church?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Can't call you one of them, but you're still a friend.
Well, that's...
Whether you like it or not.
Yes, I'm not in the church anymore. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
No, but that's not.
We've had this enormous gap in our relationship for whatever. We knew each other as youngsters.
Yep.
Well, not that young. I guess I was probably around when did you join the church? Year-wise.
Sometime in the early 70s.
Okay. I went and served a mission in the Philippines from 74 to 76.
Yeah, I think a year before that, yeah.
So you were probably there before and then probably also afterwards. And then I disappeared because I got married after.
Yeah.
And went off, and we haven't really seen each other since. Maybe, probably not at all.
No, not at all.
And then...
And I don't think we've given each other any regard either, so I mean, it's just that we have a shared background. And,
well, that's it. That's it. And then we came across each other again.
Yeah. Facebook.
Recently. Facebook. Well, where would we be without Facebook, huh? Yes, indeed. Don't know how that... Oh, yes, I think I do. It was probably a mutual acquaintance.
Yep.
Yes. Who shall remain nameless.
Yep. And a good friend.
Yes. Yes, lovely person. She'll probably know who she is if she ever watches this. Oops, I let something out. That's just narrowed it down by 50%.
Oh, and a husband. We're old mates.
That's true. He's a lovely bloke too. So, you transitioned very gently from the church. After the fact, now, how long ago was that?
20 years.
20 years. How's your life now?
Great.
Great. Did it change much?
Change, I guess the changes in the work I did. And then since retirement, the work I'm doing now. So it's I'm writing, as you said, I'm entertaining. Very, very full life, I guess. It's enjoyable. I'm still on adventures. Life has been a great adventure.
One of the things that a lot of people inside the church tell people who are leaving, and I say this because I've experienced this to an extent myself, that you can't be happy outside, or you might think you're happy, but you're not really, because you need to have, you can't be happy unless you're being obedient and being a good Christian or a good whatever. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, actually. You bring up the word obedience. I know that there was some pithy comment, the glory of God is intelligence, or something along those lines. And I heard that phrase mouthed quite a few times, but and I looked in I did a Bible search just recently.
I noticed some extensive discussion going on about that.
Yes, there is. And I popped in intelligence, and I noticed there is not one phrase or line praising intelligence. In fact, there's a number of phrases there decrying intelligence and decrying wisdom as well, saying that I will bring the wisdom of your what's-her-name people to whatever. But there's a shitload, and I don't mind using that word, it's a shitload on obedience. And so the two phrases, I think those two phrases would cancel each other out. Which one do you go with? I go with intelligence. I go with I'm lost for words. You know, I've had Alzheimer's for as long as I can remember. In not engagement, but exploration and looking at stuff. I mean, there's a swag of words, there's a swag of phrases I could use or questions I could ask.
I think intelligence is an interesting word. I'm wondering what does it mean to you?
It means fully aware and using your faculties, the ones that some would say God-given faculties, to do whatever you want to do.
So
and I guess to explore and to educate.
You're not thinking IQ?
No, well, put it this way, I would sooner go to have surgery done by a bloody surgeon than go to a wise man or a hermit or a bloody wise man in the church or anywhere else. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's intelligence that sent people to the moon. Wisdom, it's intelligence also that created a bucket load of weapons of mass destruction. I guess that where wisdom comes in is where to use them, or not invent the bloody things in the first place. There's not too many dumbos that are well, hang on, maybe that could be wrong. That aspire to great things. I don't know. I have different arguments with folks. Maybe that's not fair. Argument. You ask certain questions and you don't get answers, and particularly when there's a faith and science type of conversations. Faith ones, I have a difficulty with, and to me and to my mind, it's very easy to come undone. There's two words, I guess, which really are very difficult for people of faith. And those words are, prove it. I have, I guess, not by design, just by happenstance, become somewhat of an atheist. I don't doubt, I don't disbelieve that there is a God. I don't even know if there's room. I don't know if there is. I think Aurelius said something along the lines, the gods may be capricious, or they may be good, or there may be none. It's better to live your life where you don't have, so it's better not to worship the bad ones and hope maybe that the good ones exist, but either way, if you live your life, live a good life, without having anyone to look over your shoulder, that you live it for itself, the good gods aren't going to punish you. That's a paraphrase, of course. You're welcome to look that up. I'm pretty much of the same mind. I think the thing that stuck out for me in some of those meetings that I returned to was that people were constantly looking over their shoulder and trying to seem to be good rather than to heck with it and just do good. Big difference. And I get that in conversations a lot too, that I don't think many understand the difference between being good. You can't be good. You just can't be. You can't be a rocket scientist either. You can't be an astronaut. Be? No, you can learn to fly and all that sort of stuff, but you can't be. But you can do. You can do things that will get you to flying in a rocket ship. You can do good. And you don't need anybody looking over your shoulder to do that.
Being is a function of doing.
Perhaps, maybe it is, but I see a big difference between the two.
Being, sometimes, that sounds maybe like a label.
I think so.
I'd like to label myself as good.
And that's probably for another discussion somewhere
Yeah.
else. But you know, this is the stuff that comes up for me. I'm happy. I really am. I can't get over how happy I am. And yes, I do engage in robust debate with friends, and they are friends. One that I regularly debate with is of a certain faith, and we meet weekly and have coffee. We don't debate those issues over coffee, because the good thing about putting them online is that so you see the question come up, you can sit and think and put forward a reasoned response. Not necessarily one that anybody else will agree with, it doesn't matter. But sharpening the tools for debate. And good, robust debate actually keeps our swords sheathed, so we don't rip them out and start cutting each other up. It's good. Well,
No, go on.
now I've lost it.
Okay. What about certainty?
Certainty? Oh, certainty, absolutely, yeah. I am going to die.
Fairly certain about that?
Oh, well, I thought I'd live forever, but so far so good. But no, I know it, you know, I know it. And if there is a hereafter, all well and good. If there isn't a hereafter, all well and good, really. The only thing I've got control over is the here and the now. I can't live in the past because I don't live there anymore. I'm right here. And the stuff I do now may or may not impact. Oh yeah, I'm going to screw up for sure. I still screw up and make mistakes. I don't, the thing is, that's not important, really. I know in the church they said, this is your trial. I said, well, whoopee-doo. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All I know is that I'm enjoying whatever it is. And if something happens and I'm taken, so be it, really. I just hope I've got a few friends left before I leave. And that, well, maybe they'll mourn or rejoice. I hope they'll rejoice for a life well lived. I guess that's the best thing we can hope for.
So you don't have, not having certainty doesn't distress you?
That is certainty. I'm going to die. In fact, that drives
well, I
me.
guess that's, yeah.
No, I'm driven by that. The fact is that, hey, I do want to leave something for when I'm gone, so that people will know my passing. Maybe that's a bit of selfishness and a bit of ego popping in there. So I write doggerel, I write poetry, I write short stories and stuff like that. I also publish stuff online, and I've written fairly extensively. A lot of stuff is just not there, and it's just thoughts and feelings and pontifications and just brain dumps or thoughts. You know, so.
Occasionally people find value in the things that we have to say.
Yeah, maybe they do.
And it's worth recording them, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
Mm.
And some mightn't either. They might even take umbrage, and that's fine. You know, the thing is, you just do. You're right. But I think the most important thing is this interaction with other people. No matter who. And another thing that I find I have a great deal of problem with is, and I guess it's universally related, this thing about looking good. Everything has to have an appearance. I'm thinking, oh, give it a fucking break. You know, we're more concerned with bloody appearance. Sorry, don't pop me in the edit.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
You know, really.
I think people will survive.
Well, maybe. You know, really, that's, I mean, you look around even now, and everything is on the appearance, that the makeup has to be just so. And there's just too many examples to rail off the top of my head. And that's what the concentration is on. The
Now, are you saying you notice this particularly at church, or just in general in the world?
I noticed it first at church. First, really. That's where it really hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm finding that it's pretty much all over, universal. I don't know what in third world and stuff, but definitely in the first world, we seem to be, I've taken visits overseas and seen what it's like over there, and I just shake my head bewildered. I'm thinking, where's the value in that? Oh, actually, no, there is value in that. Through product and advertising and stuff like that. So basically, we're just grist for the mill. So.
We're widgets, little useful bits of product.
I hardly watch any TV, and I was sitting down last night. I've got the cable thing. And I was looking through all of these great movies I could watch last night on the Netflix. I think, that'd be nice. Then I look at the time, 2 hours for that movie. I flicked through, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. No, I just gave up. I said, no, I don't want to take that time out of my life. That sounds weird, but
No, I know where you're coming from. Sometimes we sit down and think to watch something, and the problem we have is that so often you sit down and you look, gee, I'd really like a good movie, and all the current stuff, almost without exception, is just, it's dark and it's rubbish, and it's not enjoyable, it's not pleasant, it's not uplifting. You watch it and it's trying to make you afraid of something. And it disappoints. But we have a library of old movies, and every now and then we dig out some and watch an old movie. And
I'm finding that a lot of the adventure type movies, with lots of action type movies, the majority of them, the big blockbusters, have always got some sort of superhuman that they're appealing for, that's going to save them from all bits and pieces. If not the person or whatever. Here's something which is really interesting. There's two things that really scare me. Okay? One, that there is life out there. That scares me. And the second thing that scares me, that there isn't.
Yeah. You can think about that for a while.
Yeah, well, whimsy.
All right. We've made some good progress here. I think we've got a fair idea of how your experience was and how it felt for yourself, and it seems as though to me you've tried hard to make your life worthwhile and not worried too much about what other people think.
Yeah, you nailed it, yeah.
And I guess that's a pretty good goal.
Yeah, but there's also an addendum to that. I do worry about some people, what they think, and you tread carefully and sensitively with other people's feelings. I treasure my friends that I left in the church, and there's no way known that I'd sort of chuck stuff up at them, and that, and because that's their faith, that's their decision, and they're good and they're comfortable in it, and they're enjoying it. So why break people's bubbles? Why burst people's bubbles? I wouldn't do that.
No, it's.
However, hang on a side issue, but that's with matters of that particular faith. But sometimes they sort of step outside of that and make odd statements and stuff which need to be challenged, and that's what's challenged. You know what I'm talking about there.
I think so.
Yeah, and there's stuff that you can't let go, and particularly in a public forum, if people make a statement which is worthy of a challenge, in a public forum, well, it should be challenged publicly. And if people take umbrage to that, or take personal umbrage, I mean, they shouldn't.
I've always felt that if you're prepared to take a position on something, you should be prepared to defend your position. And it's really, to my mind, it's really, I think the word is disingenuous. I'm not quite certain. It's not a good idea to take positions on things when you don't really know, when you have no way of supporting. And people of faith, I'm not wanting to openly criticize people's faith. I don't think that's appropriate for me to say to somebody, gee, that belief is stupid. But sometimes I will say to people, you've just explained to me a belief. I don't understand how you can believe that. Can you please back it up? Can you please explain to me where that comes from? And sometimes people can, and I really appreciate that.
And then we both grow.
Yes, and sometimes people can't, and hopefully they don't take that as a personal slight.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not attacking people.
They're mature. That's right. You're asking.
Yeah.
I find
yeah.
I find many conversations that, and look, there are so many flavours of Christianity, so many, which is really interesting, because they all profess the same word, but every flavour of, well, will broaden it, not just Christianity, anything that comes out of the books of Moses, and that includes Islam as well. There are so many different flavours there, you think, what the hell is really going on? Oh, that's right, and every flavour is right. This is the right, this is the true. And they all say that. I mean, if they don't say it outwardly, openly, they feel it, that ours is the only one. And that's a big disjoint for me. So there was someone, I think it was, I forget who the hell it was, that said, there's 2,500 different gods in the world. You believe in, you believe that 2,499 of them are wrong. I've gone one step further. You're so close. Keep going. I mean, that was done in jest. But the thing is, too, this is the big thing. If, and carries on from your from what you just said, if the only explanation for something of that particular faith is done in that particular worldview, or needs that particular faith's worldview, it's pointless. Really, I mean, so you've got all of these different worldviews that are saying that theirs is right, and the only explanation is their specific worldview. So that's a big...
And if we take that approach, we have a tendency to then focus on what's different.
Rather than what is.
You know, yeah.
I mean, my latest thing is, okay, prove that there is a God. Okay, prove it. Then you go off into some sort. Now, I know that the God of gravity can be proven. I know that the God of propulsion can be proven. They're all unseen and very powerful. They can be proven scientifically. And the other one, who knows? And that's not to diss anybody that does have faith.
I think faith is a useful thing on occasion.
It works. It works, particularly when it goes to a certain end. But we've been, sorry, I'll cut across you there. I think we've been conned by all of these 2,500 or odd or whatever thingos saying that this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. Sorry, I mean, as an atheist, I don't see too many other atheists knocking on my door, telling me about the Gospel of Elton John, for example, or whatever. I don't. It's just not there. Yeah, we can go back in history, and non-believers have wreaked a lot of havoc, like the Huns and what have you, even the communists. But they had a faith. They had a faith they had a belief which was intrinsically entrenched, and that was the belief in the system of communism or Nazism, and that was their belief. And their God was Lenin. Their God was Adolf. Their God was Attila. But the problem is that we overlook the others. That all of these from the one church that's created a shitload of carnage throughout the world, and even put the sword to people. Do you believe? Believe what? Do you believe? No. Do you believe? Yeah, I believe. Yeah, that's the Teutonic Knights during that period, and of course during the Crusades. There was a shitload of. Anyway, that's another conversation.
Well, thank you, Manfred. I think hopefully we haven't offended too many believers, and hopefully we haven't offended too many non-believers.
No, that wasn't that's just history, I guess.
It is.
Paraphrased and probably incorrect.
I think experience has taught me that we often don't know what we think we know.
True.
And it's always wise to leave some space for the fact that there might be more to learn. And I mentioned certainty earlier. Certainty was something that I used to have when I was a true believer in a particular religion. I had a lot of certainty. There were many things that
And you proclaim that every month.
That I did, often. Not every month, but often, because I wanted to give other people the opportunity as well, and I didn't feel like getting up sometimes. But I felt certainty, and I felt a little bit, just a smidgen better than everybody else. I felt a little bit superior, and I know now that I had no right to feel better. One of the things that came very clearly to my heart after I left the church was that I am the same as everybody else now. I realized that I'm not better and I'm not worse than other people. And I felt a great affinity for the rest of mankind, which I hadn't before, because I knew better. I knew something that they didn't know. And I felt a little bit superior. I never admitted it, but I know I felt it. And to anybody who's listening who might have that much certainty in their life, I would encourage you to think carefully and realize that maybe you don't.
Hold that thought, because I also, you're right, you bring that up, I also felt superior to everybody else. I didn't care what everybody else thought, because I knew. The problem is, I didn't know that much.
Yeah.
I really didn't, But you're right, that's hit me as well too. And I think there's a degree of superiority that goes on now. I'm not, in many faiths, there are many, many humble people there too, that I hasten to add, lovely people.
Oh, there are.
There are. They should not be discounted.
But, anyway, I appreciate the time you've given us.
I'm welcome.
And you are welcome. And I've quite enjoyed it. And
it's scary.
Meeting of the minds. I often think that the art of conversation as it's gone to a large extent. I've been sitting here listening to the things that you've had to say, sharing your feelings, your thoughts, your insights, pouring out your heart to an extent. I don't agree with everything that you believe, and it doesn't matter. I don't think. I'm not an atheist. I have a belief in
Divinity?
a God of some description.
Divinity.
Or divinity, yes. Certainly, I believe that.
I sort of do too, in a way.
Yeah.
But you know, with
So, some people make jokes and say a lot of atheists kind of, when they get really close to ending their lives, they suddenly become not atheist anymore. And I don't know if that's a...
Mark, look up Clive James, and I think it's the Maple. Look it up, some of his works. He's close to death, man, and he is writing prolifically and doing very, very well. And that's, look it up, Clive James. I can rattle up a whole bunch of folks.
I've actually heard a fair bit of Clive's stuff, and he's interesting. He's good.
Yeah.
A lot of what he has to say. Anyway, so we're different, vastly different.
But we still wipe our bums with paper.
Indeed we do. And on that note,
that's very base.
I think we might end.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Good on you.
You too.